I want to start out here today and let's talk about the how did I get here idea as it deals with parenting. And I believe we need to do this to lay the groundwork for us to be able to figure out how we can go out and grow in our ability to be a better parent, and how we can learn to interact with our children on a more appropriate basis than what we do. And I believe that what we do is a lot of us, we get in the situations where we're in today, and maybe you've got great kids, or maybe you've got rotten kids that have really gone off the deep end in your mind and are doing things that you really don't want them doing. And all of us are somewhere in the different extremes of that picture. But most of the time, I think most of us really do. We get to some point in our life and go, whoa, I thought I knew about parenting, but I am doing terrible at it. Why? How did I get here? Or we get to a point where we have teenagers who might be rebelling against us, and we just finished a giant blow up with one of our teenagers. We're going, oh, I thought I was doing the right things. How did I end up in this spot where this child that I love, I feel like I'm driving them away out of my home? Anybody can relate to me on this one? I think most of us get to that point at some time or another in the course of raising our children. And that's why I hope that by teaching the principles that we're going to be teaching throughout these videos and in our other courses on our other materials, we're going to help you be able to change that. But I don't believe that we can start changing it until we can get a picture of how we got to where we're at in the first place. And that picture comes from, first off, none of us probably have been really given any effective courses in how to be a great parent. First of all, because I don't hardly believe they exist out there. There's lots of different things, there's a lot of different strategy-based programs that I've come across, but I don't believe that any of them teaches us the underlying principles of what's going on in the dynamics of these relationships with our kids. And therefore, if we're just learning strategies, it's like we're trying to put a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. And it just doesn't work well. Topped off with the fact that, for me at least, I can't remember the strategies in the heat of the moment. So it's critical that we get to where we understand the underlying principles. So, if we don't understand the principles, then how is it that we make the choices on how we go about parenting from where we're at right now? And the reality of it is that most of us come into this totally unprepared, except for what we've seen modeled for us in the past. And we either try to copy what seemed to work well for somebody we admired, or we try to avoid and do the opposite of something that we could see obviously wasn't working well for somebody that we could see modeling it for us. And that could have been our parents, it could have been our friends, it could have been our neighbors, any number of things. But a lot of times, if we'll look back in our lives, we will either have our own parents that we really looked up to and respected because we thought they did a great job, or if that wasn't the case, we'll be able to look at maybe some of our close friends' parents who, man, I really like going over to Joey's house because his mom and dad always seemed like they were great parents. They were kind and things were fun at their house. And so it really is a modeling thing. It's what did we see modeled for us as we were growing up, and especially as we were getting older and starting to think about having to create our own families and what we would do there. And I think back, for instance, in my household, I got paddled on a fairly regular basis. Now, you have to understand, I am not an anti-spanking person. I just believe with that particular issue, there are times when it's appropriate, but most of the time it's not. And if it gets used to too constant, too frequent of an extent, it completely loses its effectiveness. And the older I get, the more I understand that I can get more positive reactions from a person by approving and praising them for the good things that they do rather than beating them for the bad things that they do. I'll just throw out real quick here. I read a great book. It's called Whale Done. and they talk about in there, they compare training killer whales at SeaWorld to training your kids, or even dealing with anybody. And they said